welcome back. We're going to spend a few more minutes with Ifaat from Bottomline Financial, a daily money manager, and we're going to do the second segment on scams, on financial scams, specifically phishing, which begins with a P, and spoofing. So Ifaat, tell us a little bit about some of the scams that you're aware of. I know that back in the day, I think when I was growing up, it was more people knocking on the door and they would want to sell aluminum siding or fix the roof or a boiler, and it was more personalized scamming, right? But this kind of scam goes back a few thousand years, probably. And so how can you give us a little insight as to maybe how some of your clients have been spoofed or been affected by a phishing attempt, or if not, any detail in the difference between the two and how people can protect themselves?
Sure. So a phishing email is often an email that looks like it's coming from an organization that you might have a relationship with, like a bank. And it will, at some level, say that there's a problem with your account. Click on this link and update your information, or call us on this phone number. And the important thing to do is never click on a link and never call the phone number on the email. Your banks are fully aware of these types of emails and will not ask you to do that. If you're at all concerned that there's a problem with your account, the important thing to do is go to your bank statement and call the number on your bank statement. A spoofing email is an email that looks like it's coming from a friend of yours, but it's not. Okay. It's coming from the scammer, and they generally try and get you to click on a link. And I never click on links in emails to begin with at all, ever. In these types of spoofing emails, you don't want to click on the link because it can unleash a virus or unleash ransomware, and then you don't have control of your computer until you pay the ransom.
Probably in Bitcoin, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway from this conversation is I would not click on links in an email, and I would never follow up with a phone call based on an email.
Would you say that some of do you have any knowledge of maybe the antivirus programs that are out there? I mean, have they ever helped? Do they give you a false sense of security, or is the best security just not clicking on the link that's in the, like, it's okay to read the email, but it's not okay to click on any of the links in the email? So
this is what I would say. If you don't, just like you wouldn't open the door to a stranger, if you don't recognize an email, if you've opened it, don't click on a link, just delete it. There is Norton antivirus software. Use a software that protects your computer and update it when they say to update it. So yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think also people that are younger generally are more ahead of the curve technology, where some of the people in the final third might have old operating systems, Windows 7, Windows 8. Now we're up to Windows 10, and even then I think there's going to be another upgrade shortly, but the old operating systems are not managed by Microsoft Windows, right, as well. So they might not have the internal updates that could leave your computer more vulnerable. So
if I can make a pitch, I did meet somebody who is very knowledgeable and works with older adults. Her name is Sarah Silver from Computer Companion.
Sarah Silver?
Yes.
From Computer Companion.
Yeah, okay. And she works wonders with her clientele, usually older clientele.
Interesting. Yeah, because we're really letting these people into our home already, right? I mean, you guard against just opening up the door. You look through the peephole to make sure it's somebody you know. But every time we turn our computer on and we're checking our emails, there's just dozens and dozens that come in every day of people really just trying to get themselves into our home, into our finances.
Yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And so would you say, Ifaat, that the engagements that you have, that the men and women are computer savvy because computers have been around since the early 1980s? Or would you say it's like the video recorder where the zeros are still flashing, like the clock is still flashing all zeros, and we've just gone too fast, too far, where people are just uncomfortable with computers?
It ranges the gamut, and it's always refreshing to see when most of my clients are older adults, and it is refreshing to see when they've mastered their data phone
texting.
But some don't even have a desktop, and they cannot. They don't have an email.
Mm-hmm.
They prefer not to do auto pay. It ranges the gamut.
Boy, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were there other scams or financial abuses that you'd like to talk about, just in general?
Yeah. IRS scams, they try and get you to reveal personal financial information or make you pay a false tax payment that stays with the scammer.
Mm-hmm.
And the scammers are really getting more bold. And what do I mean by that? They're not only calling, they are emailing, and they're sending letters that look like the IRS letterhead.
Right.
And so what I want to communicate is the following with IRS scams. If somebody owes money to the IRS, they will generally get a letter. And in that letter, it will tell them what they owe. And in that letter, they will also have an opportunity to appeal what is owed.
Okay.
What the IRS will not do is call angrily and demand that you make a tax payment. They're not going to threaten to send police or sheriff to have you arrested. So they'll give you an opportunity to appeal. The IRS will give you an opportunity to appeal.
I think the thing that I'm most shocked by is the number of very well educated, they're doctors, attorneys, who fall victim to these scams. I mean, you think that it's people that are like not so smart, but the truth is there's an incredible number of highly educated, very well professionals, surgeons, doctors that fall victim to these scams all the time. Like, how do you reconcile that?
It is frustrating, but I'm going to explain. When people, so I want to also talk about the grandparent scam.
Okay, grandparent scam.
Yes.
Okay, whichever order you want.
The reason. So the grandparent scam is when somebody might get a phone call, and people fall victim to this all the time, so I'm going to say this. They get a phone call where the caller said, "Grandma, Grandpa, I'm in trouble, don't tell Mom and Dad, I need money." Sometimes the older adult that gets this phone call doesn't hear too well. Mm-hmm. And might be a little bit confused, might start to be experiencing some dementia.
Sure.
What I try and communicate is that the takeaway here is to hang up the phone and call your grandchild on the phone number that you know is appropriate, because it is, I don't want to say always, but generally a scam. And the way, my understanding, the way they get the names of people are through obituaries often, where they get the name of a surviving spouse, they get the name of the grandkids. So it's frustrating, but people are, when they get older, they're not as discerning.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. Well, I know that my grandkids probably be too afraid to call me and my wife, so I'm not quite sure how they're going to get their money. All right, so after the grandparent scam, it was, again, you're going to answer the question, like, how do what appear to be highly intelligent surgeons, doctors, lawyers, judges fall victim to what appear to be scams that you just, like, how does that happen?
Okay, well, to answer that question, financial exploitation can affect anybody. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. Every year, millions of people over the age of 65 are victims of abuse. There was an elder law study in 2010 that estimates that 1 in 5 adults over the age of 65 fall victim to abuse annually.
Really?
And the dollar value linked to that is $2.9 billion. But the truth of the matter is, and I want to get to answer your question, the dollar value linked to that is $2.9 billion. But it's probably higher because people don't report it.
Sure.
And why don't people report abuse? Because they don't want to get their kids in trouble or their caregiver in trouble. So it really, as people get older, they don't have as much socialization. Sure. I think that might be one of the biggest reasons.
Huge.
And when they're not socializing as much, they're more vulnerable to people calling them and wanting to talk on the phone. So to take that one step further, if you can keep your parent engaged on a social level, they're less likely to want to talk to somebody who calls them on the phone.
That is a wonderful, wonderful observation and statement. because the social aspect just covers everything. It covers the spirituality of people. It covers, mental health, physical health. I know that the social aspect is just so important for who we are as human beings, right? And not only for financially to protect us against these kind of scams, but just overall personal fulfillment and development. It's just, I think it's really the magic, the holy grail, I think, of being in the final third is having good socialization.
I agree.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us,
You're
Ifaat. I
welcome.
really appreciate your
My
insights on
pleasure.
all this. Please tell our viewers again where they can get a hold of you.
Sure.
And
My firm is Bottomline Financial. My website is bottomlinefinancial.com, and my phone number is 847-987-0969. Thank you.
and you're in the local North Shore area. Your
I am.
business is in Northbrook, and
Yes.
you make house calls.
I absolutely do.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you again for being with us on this episode of the Final